น่าสนใจมากเลยนะครับเพราะว่าเป็นบุคคลที่ค่อนข้างมีชื่อเสียงที่ประเทศอังกฤษนะครับเคยเป็นคอลัมนิสต์เขียนบทความติดอันดับความนิยมในปี 2016 จากบทความที่มีชื่อว่า The 10 Principles of Strategic Leadership ในนิตยสาร Strategy and Business นะครับนิตยสารนี้หลายคนอ่านมากเลยนะครับนอกจากนี้เนื้อหาวันนี้นะครับทุกท่านก็จะได้รับการเจาะลึกถึงเรื่องของ Service Design ในรูปแบบของดิจิทัลมาปรับแล้วก็ใช้กับธุรกิจของตัวเองเพราะว่าในตอนนี้เรากำลังก้าวเข้าสู่หรือว่าจริงๆแล้วก้าวเข้าสู่ไปแล้วนะครับธุรกิจ 4.0 เพราะฉะนั้นมันจะต้องมีการปรับตัวเยอะมากเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเดี๋ยวขอเรียนเชิญคุณ Jessica Leach Principal and Co-Head of Design at Adaptive Lab Please Jessica the floor is yours
Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me here today. So I want to talk to you today about why I think service design is the key to value creation and the key to creating better experiences. So let me start by saying, oh, it's gone. So yes, thank you for having me here. Just to repeat what the gentleman said before, so I am the head of service design at Adaptive Lab. So we're a digital innovation consultancy and we work with startups and with large companies to actually help them to grow. So how do we do that? We help them to transform their existing services. We help them to build new products and services as well. And we actually help them to build muscle. So we help them to build muscle in service design and in other design practices as well. So but what this slide doesn't tell you about me is that I'm a reformed management consultant. I kind of retrained in service design. I wanted to do something better for the world. And why I retrained in service design is because I think it is one of the industries of the future. So why I think that is increasingly economies as they become more advanced, they move towards more service-based economies. And so I feel like this is going to be a skill set that organisations and countries will need going forward. So hopefully I can convince you of that today as well. Right, so, oh, I also should mention I'm the founder of a startup as well, so I have a lot of sympathy for everyone here. So I do that alongside my role too. Okay, so what is service design? I'm sure you're all dying to know. So service design it's a way to make services more useful, more usable, more efficient, and more desirable. So I'll go into what that exactly means in a minute. It's a relatively new field of design, so frustratingly, it keeps changing in terms of its definitions. So what I am going to go through today is a kind of a very basic definition of what service design is, but you'll find if I come back again in maybe 3 years, it's going to be different, maybe even 3 weeks. But because it's an evolving field of design and it's very practitioner-led, it's one of those things that is continuously evolving and changing every day. So in terms of how it emerged, so service design emerged when we found organisations were kind of done with selling products. They got all the value that they can from selling products, and it kind of coincided with the growth in service-based economies across the world. So as an economy matures, it's an economic practice that they'll want more products, they'll want less products and more services. So things like healthcare services, things like services in the MICE sector, for example. Economies demand more services as they advance. So that's why service design as a practice is really important, because you can't design services in the same way as you design products. So interestingly, one of the earliest examples of service design came from a company called Rolls-Royce. I understand Boeing is here today. Boeing is another really good example too. So in terms of Rolls-Royce, what happened was they were selling all of these jet engines, and what they actually make their money from is from the after-sales servicing. So that's a concept called servitization, and it first kind of appeared in the manufacturing sector, and Rolls-Royce was one of the first organisations to take that on board. And it's a similar kind of practice that you can actually apply to a whole heap of different products that you can put services around. Right, so I might just pop my phone down so I can work this clicker. Yes, so it was pioneered as a value creation method by Rolls-Royce. So what does that really mean? So if we start with a simple saw, there we have our saw. So this is a basic product. So a simple saw is made out of metal, it's made out of wood, It's used to cut things, it's used to create houses, tree houses, stages, a whole heap of different things. But it's just a simple product. So if we think about it within the concept of service design, nothing is this simple anymore. What we would do in the concept of service design is we'd have our saw, but then potentially you might not want to saw yourself. And if you don't want to saw yourself, you actually might want to hire someone else to do it. And there'll be someone who'll be happy to do that for you. And that's the kind of concept of what a service is. So it's about taking a need. So I have a need to saw something, so I can make a house or a stage or a tree house or whatever my heart desires, and kind of outsourcing that need to someone else to serve for me. So there isn't just two options as far as services are concerned. There's a whole heap of options in the middle as well. So how would you like someone to help? This is what we're thinking about when we're thinking about service design. So we have the saw. We have the simple service of just giving the saw to someone else and having them do it for you and then paying them. Or then we have saw advisors, so people who could advise you on how to use a saw. And people who might not do the sawing for you, but they'll tell you the best way to saw. Really helpful. That's a kind of service. You could have specialty saws as well. So you could have people who know how to use specialist kind of saws, so they can saw faster for you, or saw in a more efficient way, or saw more pieces of wood. And then you can also rent a saw too. So say you don't want to buy a saw outright, I could provide a service for you where you're renting a saw, and then I'll take it back from you at the end. And if you don't pay up, that's when a whole heap of other services get involved as well. So you can see very quickly that when humans get involved, actually, services can become quite complicated. And so service design is the practice of actually creating the services that go around these and making sure that they deliver the original customer experience. You can even have SaaS, saws, saws as a service, or saws in the cloud. So it goes to the extreme. And actually, but this is what a lot of the services are today that we're helping organisations to design. So one of the things that we're working on at Adaptive Lab is democratising advice in the pension sector. So we're actually working with an organisation who does a lot of kind of offline basic services in terms of selling products around pensions and giving advice, but they've never done anything digital before. So what we're trying to do is actually digitise those products for them and create a service for them. So this seems like a silly example, but actually it's a good way to actually describe what service design is. You can also apply the same logic to buying a cup of coffee. So if I'm applying this in kind of a situation, a typical kind of San Francisco situation, when I'm creating a service, I need to know about what a service is. I need to be able to evaluate whether it's the best service. So if I apply this to a cup of coffee, I search online, say for the best coffee shops. I acquire a service, so I grab an Uber. If I was here, I would get a Grab, obviously. And I kind of Uber over to the coffee shop. And the Uber guy is a 2-star kind of guy. It's part of designing services that you design how it actually happens when you're using the service as well. So I get to the coffee shop. It's nice that it looks on the website, but they don't know what a flat white is. So I explain what a flat white is to the barista, but they seem a little confused, and I end up with a coffee that I don't want, which ruins my experience. And so in the end, because my experience was ruined, I never go back to this coffee shop again. So actually you can see on a very kind of basic service about designing how I get a cup of coffee, there are a whole heap of things that you can see influence how I feel about that cup of coffee in the end. So you can see, what does the website look like? How do I actually get there? What happens when I'm there? What's the environment like when I'm there? What happens when I've got a question? What happens when I want to change something, when it's not exactly as I had hoped? And what happens at the end if I have not had a very good experience? So actually service design is the practice of influencing all of these actors that go into creating a service and getting me my cup of coffee. Okay. So as I said, when humans get involved, things get very complicated very quickly. And that's why service design is a great value creation tool, because it's about making things simple, and it's about trying to focus on the things that deliver the best experience possible for customers, but then also for employees. So every organisation is inherently, or it could be, a service organisation, even if it doesn't see itself in that way. So things that are services include renewing your passport, buying a Big Mac, designing or delivering a conference, running a hotel, any of those kinds of things, they're all services. And services involve a front and a backstage. So that's why it's more complicated than building a product, because actually you have to consider not just what the customer sees, but actually what happens in terms of delivering the service as well. But luckily, services actually create more value than products. So they're things that people are a lot more loyal to, and they're things that are very difficult to replicate. It's very easy to replicate a product, but it's very difficult to replicate a really good service. So services in terms of the front stage involve the user and the customer perspective. So that's how a service is experienced. So if you think about a bar, how the martini is delivered to you. And it also includes the organisational perspective, so how a service is delivered. And this is how service design is different to product design, which people in the audience may have had exposure to, in the sense that it deals with the whole service in totality. So not one without the other. Actually, it thinks about both the customer client-facing bit and also the rest of the organisation. So why is everyone so excited about service design, and why in particular am I so excited about service design? And I'm here today to hopefully get you guys excited as well. So 84% of companies aspire to be leaders in customer experience, but only 1 in 5 deliver a good or great customer experience. And as I said, users are loyal to experiences, not products. Unless you want to compete on cost, the proposition of a great service can actually make cost a less relevant thing. So, and as I said before as well, a great service is very difficult to replicate because of all the intricacies that go into creating those perfect interactions. A really good product is really easy to replicate usually, because there are some simple components that go into it. And if some people get the same technology as you, it's easy for them to replicate. It's much more difficult to replicate a service. And interestingly, organisations who are design-led, so people who have taken service design into their organisation, outperform the S&P by 219%. They tend to have 41% higher market share, a 46% competitive advantage over their competitors, 50% more loyal customers, and 70% better digital experiences than their other competitors. So those are some really significant statistics around why service design is a particularly important thing to be thinking about. Finally, the thing that I love about service design is that it considers both the front and the backstage. It considers what goes on in the organisation and outside the organisation too. So what it does is it leverages all the different teams within the organisation to orient them around providing a great customer experience. And it makes services seamless, simpler and more consistent. So it looks at the data, the technology, the systems, the organisation design, the processes, everything in the background that actually all comes together to provide that cup of coffee, or to service you well in a conference, or to have a great hotel experience, whatever it happens to be. Service design is about designing all of those interactions so they all come together to create a fantastic customer experience. Okay. So, thinking about that coffee example, or thinking about the bar example, or any other kind of service, you can't account for how a customer feels when they walk into a bar. So if I had a bad experience on getting there in the taxi that I was travelling in, you can't account for that. You can't make me feel any better about my life. But you can set the stage so that it's ready to be able to work, so that it's flexible to account for me when I get there. So if I'm feeling great, if I'm feeling down, if I'm having a bad day, actually that's going to impact my experience of your service. So you can't really impact that, but you can set that stage so that it's the best that it can be, and it's the most flexible possible to make the experience as best as it can for me. So what makes a really great service? Some panache, obviously. A service that's designed based on customer rather than business needs. So I was at a design thinking workshop yesterday, and we talked a lot about starting with customer needs, and we did some journey mapping exercises to actually think through what's important from a customer standpoint first, rather than starting with the business need. What is also really important is for a service to be really successful, you need to start with a genuine understanding of the purpose for and the demand for the service. A lot of people just come up with an idea, and I'm sure there's lots of those people here today who are kind of just throwing out their ideas on a wing and a prayer. But what makes really good service is making sure you understand what it's there for and what the demand is for it. So that means starting with a customer need and fulfilling that need. And it also means understanding your ability to deliver against that need as a service provider. What good service also is that it creates value for users and for customers, and that it's delivered as efficiently as possible by a unified system rather than piece by piece. So what that means is that you need to have your service designers thinking about how do you actually deliver the service altogether. Quite a lot of services have sprung up organically. A lot of organisations don't have the opportunity to design services from scratch a lot. So what they'll do is they'll kind of mash together different bits of services, and that can feel quite inconsistent, and it can actually detract from the experience for the customer. So service design is really about delivering it as efficiently as possible. And sorry about this, I think the bottom of the slides are being cut off by that font. So actually it's about not delivering it piece by piece, but delivering a consistent system. And then it's also about that je ne sais quoi. So that special something that makes it completely special to you and really difficult for your competitors to replicate. So this is also about, service design is about designing to account for special events that cause variances in the standard way of doing things. So when there's a problem, when something goes wrong, when someone's got a complaint to make, service design is about accounting for those events as well, because those are the things that happen when you work with people. There's always something that goes wrong. So actually really good service design is about that as well. So this is a tweet from Tom Coates that I really liked. So remember, a service that doesn't take into account how it can be misused by bad actors is a bad and irresponsible service. It's as true with car and scooter sharing services as it is with social media. So one of the things that is a really popular thing at the moment is sharing of bicycles and scooters and then kind of dotting them all around town in London. So people are a bit cranky about that because they're constantly tripping over these bikes that people have just left everywhere. But not designing for when you actually have that situation as part of a service, that actually means that you haven't designed the full experience. So it's a really good example of how you need to design for when people don't use the service as you firstly intended. So who's using service design to create a lot of value? I want to talk about an example from McDonald's, which is their service kiosks that they've put in place, which are basically about self-service. So ordering at these kiosks now means that you can choose from a range of like 30 different burgers with 5 different sauces, and a huge amount of customization is available to you that you couldn't have access to before. And it was also implemented by McDonald's because there was a really high rate of people not getting the order that they'd asked for, particularly when they were asking for it to be personalised. So there's a lot of benefits that have come from rethinking the service experience within the McDonald's stores to actually be oriented around this kiosk. So if you think about the customer perspective in terms of this service design to improve your Big Mac experience, so on the customer side, ordering was way too slow in peak times. The queues are huge. There's never a free table to sit at. I can't customise the order in the way that I'd like to. And I feel embarrassed saying yes to supersizing everything, because no one likes to do that, even though they really want to. So from a McDonald's employee standpoint, they had a situation where they actually wanted more people working behind the counter to actually deliver the food in peak times. They didn't have enough people to serve and work behind the counter. They needed a better way of getting the fulfilled orders to customers. So people were picking up the wrong orders all the time, and sometimes if they got the wrong order, actually they weren't able to get it fulfilled properly, which is causing problems that people within the actual teams have to deal with. They want to give customers what they want, but the systems don't support it. So they didn't have a system where they could do all of that customisation and personalisation. And it's really awkward to always be asking people to supersize. People really didn't like doing that. It's much easier for a kiosk to ask you if you want to supersize everything, because it's a secret between you and the kiosk. No one else will ever know. So what happened on the back of this is there were increased sales. So McDonald's had the highest ever share price on the back of implementing 2,500 of these kiosks across their business in the US. And they had huge improvements to a customer experience. So it was much faster, much more personal, a bit shameless, which is actually quite a good thing. And they also had an improved employee experience as well. So they had increased accuracy, so people were accidentally entering in the wrong details, and that accuracy really increased from people entering their own specific information into the kiosk and then confirming it. But they also got access to broader roles. So what McDonald's did, instead of having people ordering, what they've created is a different kind of experience within those stores, so they're actually doing table service now. So they've not reduced roles at all, actually, they've just reused them to be doing different things, which people seem to enjoy more, because it's less stressful than actually being on the checkout when you're being pressured to personalise. So that's a good example of how service design is being used to improve your big back. Another really good example is an organisation called Monzo, who is a fintech startup. So basically what they're trying to do is create a bank of the future that is very simple, very transparent. It's a bank for everyone. It knows you, it works with you, and they spend a lot of time refining their service to make sure that it anticipates all the needs that you have. So a big focus at Monzo is really about using employee experience to drive customer experience and to drive value creation through that. So what you can see here is actually an example of how, as their customers have increased, they've really invested in their customer operations team. And they spend a lot of time creating technology so that their customer operations team are considered almost super users. So they not only see what the customers see, but they see more. Quite often in many organisations, there's not as much investment in the customer operations teams, so they're not able to give that customer experience. What service design does is it actually enables, it puts the CX teams and the EX teams on the same level so that you can invest in the employee experience teams so they actually get better customer experience through those people having all the tools that they need. Monzo is doing this very well, very successfully. They're using artificial intelligence, they're using machine learning, other technology, they're using Intercom, which is a fantastic CX tool that's out there. They've built their own personalised system for their customer operations team, and this is helping them to be the fastest growing bank in the UK. They have a huge NPS score, and they're a startup, but they have a very small team. But they're in a really good place because they've been using really good service design principles to improve the employee experience and then improve the value for customers. The other one, which is a really nice example, is Airbnb. So they're an organisation who's built on design, basically. The two founders were designers. And you can see from this quote here, they see hospitality not as a trade, as a craft. And they think that authentic hospitality isn't created from a template, it's unique. And exceptional hospitality boils down to a series of well-timed small gestures that make you feel appreciated, that make you feel welcome, they make you feel at home. So they have three core service design tenets that they operate against at Airbnb. So they have this first one, which is around designing as a mutual friend. So they use an example of, have you ever been to a party when you didn't know anyone and people didn't tell you what to wear and you feel really uncomfortable, so you hang out with your friend next to you and then you lose your friend. And then you kind of are looking around and you're a bit afraid because you don't see anyone there and you have a terrible time because you're really uncomfortable. You're kind of hanging in the corner. So what they want to design for is the opposite of that. They want every experience to feel like you're walking into a room where everyone's a mutual friend. And they really try and deliver that through the service that they are providing to people I wonder if anyone's ever used Airbnb. Yeah, seeing some nods, cool. So they have this principle around designing as if you're a mutual friend. They also have a principle around designing for first impressions because their growth rate is so high. What they really need to do is they need to emphasise that the first impression needs to be the best. So they don't think that actually we're going to build up over time. They want to get the first impression right so that you'll come back again and again and that you'll refer as well. And then the third one is that trust takes effort. Designing fantastic services is really a great thing to do, but it takes a lot of effort. The services that people love require thousands of hours of investment to make them great services. It does pay off though, as you can see from the statistics that I put up before. These design-led companies are investing a lot in making their organisations really successful, but what they're also doing is, and so they're getting kind of revenue as a result, and they're creating value, but it takes a lot of effort to build up trust, and then it's dashed very quickly. So that's what Airbnb is really about. So when things go wrong, they're very quick from a refund standpoint. There is also they're very quick from making sure that the community is acting in the way that it should, because they're actually allocating a lot of their, they're relying on a lot of other people to create trust as well. So Airbnb, another great example. The other one is an example that we at Adaptive Lab actually launched. So we created a mobile network for 3Mobile, and we launched it in 6 months, and it currently has the best Net Promoter Score and Trustpilot score of any mobile network in the UK, which is super exciting. And I wanted to show you why this is a great service and how we kind of managed to design what we think is a fantastic service. So what we did was, we did the panache. So we did some research into the market to understand gaps. We had a clear and simple proposition based on needs that we actually gathered from our customers. And it's about kind of simple and honest mobile. What we did as well was we designed a simple common design system with digital channels and a common tone of voice and a customer service team. Then we launched on a really simple platform, and we are operating the network at the moment with about 10 people. The other thing that's really important is doing continuous product and service discovery. So it's about finding and planning for problems. So, for example, problems with roaming that we had to resolve, or problems that we saw that customers had with porting numbers. So it's about identifying those problems through your employees and then solving them in a really great way. The last one that I wanted to talk about is an organisation that we're working with, but this is a typical type of innovation that you would be using service design for. So in the hotel space, there are quite a lot of organisations who have hotels and restaurants under their banner, and there's a lot of work that service design is being used for within the outer circle to identify ways to create additional value for customers and generate more revenue. So this is about delivering new kind of lateral services, and I call it innovation in the outer circle. So it's about using what you know about hotels and restaurants and actually finding new ways to meet the needs of your customers through using innovation in kind of the outer circle, which I think should hopefully be relevant to some people here. So if you want to create a service design-led organisation, where do you start? Do your research. Get to know your customers. Start by mapping your customer journeys then, so understand what their needs and pain points are. Bring a whole heap of different people together to co-create. Innovation never comes from one brain, it comes from many brains working together. Invest in the front and the backstage, so make sure that you don't just invest in the customer-facing elements of the business, make sure that you also invest in the organisation that's delivering them, and that you have the right kind of organisation to deliver the experience that you want. And the last one is happy staff equals happy customers, so don't forget that as a principle. Thank you very much.
ให้กับคุณเจสสิก้าด้วยนะครับ Thank you so much, Jessica. Great speech. We're going to open the floor for questions. ถ้าหากใครมีคำถามนะครับสามารถที่จะยกมือถามได้เลยคุณเจสสิก้านะครับก็บินตรงมาจาก from London from London England บินมาจากลอนดอนเลยนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าเกิดใครมีคำถามมีคำถามไหมครับถ้าเกิด I'm not sure it's a bit scary ถ้าเกิดไม่มีคำถามนะครับเดี๋ยวผมถามเองก็แล้วกัน because we saw from the keynote okay you say you have all these business strategies for people in the hospitality it is not a business but it's sort of like a craft you said so could you give us examples of evidences that have already happened in the past where you implemented the system and it actually works
yeah sure So, so I think Airbnb is a really good example, actually. Okay. So the way that they try and create, they're almost going down a line of creating ancillary services at the moment. That so basically they let you stay in someone's house. So they make the connection between you and the person who has that house, so that you're not necessarily staying in. So it feels more personal. And they've been a really successful brand on the back of that. And what they've done is they've created a new range of services which are about actually helping you have different experiences that are related to where you're staying. And they're not, it's about kind of, it's almost trying to make you feel at home.
Okay.
So it's less about kind of tourism, but
So
more
you're
about
talking
feeling at
about
home.
the service design
Yes.
and how different places and different aspects of hospitality should adapt this
Yeah.
service design
Yep.
as a whole instead
Yep.
of just making it a business, regular
Yeah.
business,
Yep.
something like that. Okay. Any other example besides Airbnb? Because it's not doing very well here. You can't
Yeah.
really do Airbnb
Yeah.
here in
Yeah,
Thailand.
sure.
But maybe like a hotel that has its own application that you
Yeah,
can.
sure.
You know.
So there are some other hotels that we work with who are kind of working in that space. They are what they're doing is they have both hotels and restaurants, and what they're trying to do is actually do that same kind of innovation in that ancillary service space. So
Okay.
it's the same kind of thing. So they're looking at putting Amazon lockers in for people who are, for example, staying somewhere for business every single week. So they're looking to add value in terms of letting people deliver things there.
Okay.
Or they're looking at things like what is it in the rooms that they can add in particular that would help that person to do their job if they're particularly travelling for business. Or they're also looking at how do people get there? Is there anything they can do from a transport standpoint as well that would add to that value proposition?
Okay.
So there's a whole heap of different things they're doing that is a similar kind of methodology.
So because it's a leisure business
Yes.
now, because it's business and leisure. So
Yes.
if you have a hotel, you might want to put other services in there for
Yeah.
people who are there for businesses, such as the Amazon
for
locker.
sure.
One thing that comes to mind here in Bangkok is actually Line Man.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's
Not-
sort of like a delivery service that
Yeah.
you can call on your application
Yeah.
on your mobile phone.
Yes.
Uber Eats.
Yeah.
They deliver
Yes,
for you,
fantastic.
or Food Panda, something like that.
Yeah.
So for other businesses and hospitalities,
Yeah.
that they can incorporate all this into their businesses. ท่านมีคำถามอะไรไหมครับสำหรับเรื่องนี้อันนี้น่าสนใจมากเลยนะครับเพราะว่าคุณเจสสิก้าเขาบอกว่าถ้าเกิดคุณมีพวกโรงแรมอะไรพวกนี้ให้การบริการถ้าเกิดคุณสามารถที่จะมีอะไรเพิ่มขึ้น เพื่อที่จะเป็น Service Design มากกว่าแค่ทำธุรกิจเฉยๆเนี่ยมันจะทำให้นักท่องเที่ยวแล้วก็คนที่มาใช้บริการเนี่ยมีมากขึ้นนะฮะมีคำถามไหมครับโอเค no questions I think everybody understands it quite well then. Well,
Perfect.
thank you so much, Jessica Leach. Thank you so much.
I just grabbed my phone.
โอเคขอบคุณคุณ Jessica Leach นะครับ Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
today's keynote. น่าสนใจมากเลยนะครับก็อย่างที่บอกคุณ Jessica เนี่ยเขาบอกว่าถ้าเกิดคุณมีบริการโรงแรมหรือว่าอะไรเกี่ยวกับการท่องเที่ยวนะครับเทรนด์ในปีนี้คือ leisure นะครับ leisure นี่เป็นศัพท์ใหม่ที่น่าสนใจเพราะว่ามันคือ business บวกกับ leisure นะครับแล้วว่ากันว่าหรือว่ารายงานเนี่ยเขาระบุว่าคนที่ไปทำธุรกิจหรือว่าคนที่ไปท่องเที่ยวเพื่อให้เป็น business เนี่ยเขาอยากจะไปพักผ่อนด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นมันไม่ใช่แค่ไปมีตติ้งหรือว่าไปประชุมหรือว่าการไปทำธุรกิจแล้วก็กลับมาเฉยๆแต่ว่ามันเสมือนกับว่าเมื่อบริษัทส่งคุณไปนู่นไปนี่แล้วคุณอยากจะไปพักผ่อนด้วยอย่างเช่นอาจจะประชุมเสร็จแล้วปุ๊บก็อยากจะพักผ่อนด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นคุณเจสสิก้าที่เขามาพูดเนี่ยใน Triple B Keynote เนี่ยเขาก็ต้องการที่จะบอกให้กับผู้ประกอบการทั้งหลายแหละว่าในการที่คุณจะมีบริการต่างๆนานาเนี่ยถ้าเกิดคุณมี Service Design ที่ดีกว่าที่อื่นๆเนี่ยคนเขาก็จะจำแล้วคนเขาก็จะใช้บริการคุณมากยิ่งขึ้นนะครับอย่างเช่นเขายกตัวอย่างเรื่อง Airbnb เนี่ยซึ่งผมก็บอกเขาไปว่ามันอาจจะใช้ไม่ค่อยได้ที่ประเทศไทยนะครับเพราะว่าทางรัฐบาลเนี่ยก็มีกฎหมายออกมาแล้วว่าคือ Airbnb เนี่ยมันก็ผิดกฎหมายในเรื่องบางอย่างนะครับแต่ทั้งนี้ทั้งนั้นถ้าเกิดเราดู Airbnb เนี่ยเป็น case study เฉยๆนะครับเราก็จะเห็นได้ว่าการทำ service design การมีแอปพลิเคชันการทำอะไรพวกนี้มันจะทำให้ผู้ใช้บริการเข้าถึงได้ง่ายมากยิ่งขึ้นแล้วมันก็จะเป็นที่มาของธุรกิจที่เพิ่มยิ่งขึ้นถูกไหมฮะตอนนี้ก็กำลัง